I just got back from attending my first Cannes Lion. It had been on my vision board for years to attend this event, but it is quite literally the biggest and known as one of the most prestigious gatherings for the marketing industry in the entire world, and it just happens to be in the south of France. And so when I was sitting down to plan for my first time, I searched on YouTube for Cannes Lion content and I found absolutely nothing. I essentially took all of my notes, my experience, and my honest thoughts from being there for the entire week, and I wanted to share everything with you. Whether you're considering attending Cannes Lion for the first time, or you just want to learn more about it, because chances are this year you've probably seen more content and more hype around it than in previous years before, that is exactly what we're going to cover in this video. Just know I'm going to have chapters for all of the main topics we're going to cover, including a breakdown of what the festival is, who it's actually for, my honest thoughts, things that I thought were worth the hype and overhype, and exactly how getting to Cannes Lion works. So first, what is Cannes Lion? And it's really important that you don't get it mixed up with the Cannes Film Festival, because it's its own event entirely. It happens every year in June in Cannes, and historically it's been very corporate for the brands, for the decision makers, for the CMOs, and there is an award ceremony element of this where the best advertising marketing campaigns from the year get awarded during this festival. But in the past years, this festival has changed and evolved a lot, especially with the industry shifting and changing a lot. This year, there were more creators on the ground than ever before, so naturally that's meant that it isn't just the award ceremony and the main festival. So I want to break down an overview of the week. The main days of the conference are Monday through Thursday, but this has started to bleed into where there are events happening on Sunday and even things happening on Friday, like the closing party. And essentially there's two different types of events that are happening. There's official festival programming, so you actually have a pass to the festival, and this is all accessed mostly through the Palais. And so you're able to access all of the programming, all of the events that are exclusively for pass holders. And you can pay for your pass. There's a few different types, including a creator pass, but there's also media passes and different things depending on what's a good fit for you. But this is starting at 1,300 euros. So a lot of people go to Cannes and they don't have a festival pass because it's a really easy way to cut your costs. I will say I thought having a festival pass was worth it, but luckily I actually received it through a fund that I applied for. So there definitely are funds you can apply for to essentially get your festival pass for free, or if you're partnering or working with a official partner brand, often that is gifted as a part of a campaign or partnership. Then there are what people call fringe events. And this is all of the events that are happening on the Croisette, which essentially is just a really long street. It's giving like South Beach in Miami, where there's literally essentially beach clubs back to back to back, really fancy hotels, and essentially brands buy out these hotels, these beach clubs, these restaurants, these like apartment buildings, and they build out brand activations where they have their own programming, their own speakers, interactive elements for these brands, typically within the social marketing or tech space. So a lot of AI, a lot of social platforms, and a lot of digital apps and softwares. And so you don't need a conference pass to get into those, even though I found having one helped at some of the activations, but you do need to register and actively get accepted to get into these spaces. And essentially people learn about these spaces. There are lists, there are WhatsApp group, or brands actively actually sharing about them. So as you can see, you would get access to a lot of things just by simply being in Cannes and registering for these events. And a part of the fringe events, this is where you get kind of the more private invite parties, dinners, lunches, and kind of the more you go up the hill in Cannes, this is where you're getting access to things like really fun villas, or maybe in Yacht Row, literally like parties on yachts. And so I want to make it super clear, you don't get invited to Cannes. Literally anyone can go. But if you want to get access to the festival, you need to buy a pass. And if you want to get access to the fringe events, you do need to either be invited or to have your RSVP registration accepted. I think a big misconception is that all of the creators and speakers and people you see at Cannes Lion are just invited and everything is paid for, when I would say 90% of the people I ran into essentially pay their way to be there, which can be a big investment. I would say easily $5,000 to $10,000 is the range that I heard from people that were investing to be there, between their travel, accommodations, ride shares, meals, all of the things that happen that week. But once you're officially in and on the ground, that's often where you can land things like brand partnerships and speaking opportunities. But usually they're looking for you to already be there. And this is kind of like a general industry thing that I think a lot of people don't talk about enough, is they just assume people are being flown out first class to go places and getting paid to be there. And while there are people that is definitely the case for, I would say that's not the majority of it. So if you want to be in these types of rooms, you have to bet on yourself first, which is where I think the most important part of this video comes in, of like, who is Cannes Lion actually for? So I would say there are three main categories. First of all, marketers, and this is like historically what this event has been for. Then we have brands, and then we have creators. So in terms of marketers, whether you work for an agency or you have an agency like myself, maybe you work in entertainment or media or marketing or advertising or some type of creative field, maybe you do consulting or speaking around marketing topics, or you are the decision makers, the CMO, the people that are running the marketing for these big brands, this is the industry event you absolutely should be at. Not only is it for networking, for learning, for connecting, but there's a really big chance your next client, your next opportunity could absolutely be in this room. Then we have the brands, which I feel like I already kind of touched on, of like brands that are hosting dinners, meetups, one-on-one chats, or actively hosting these types of activations. I think it's worth saying that I saw brands that were literally there doing their own very intimate lunches or just doing meetups on the ground, to of course the really big brands like Meta, LinkedIn, Adobe, that were actively a part of so much of the festival. So there's definitely a range here, but I feel like if you run marketing, PR, or brand partnerships as a part of a brand, you definitely need to be here. And then we have creators. And this is where I think there's a lot of nuance, because I definitely think like B2B creators, so creators that are creating content for other business owners, other entrepreneurs, other founders, other creators, are the people that this makes the most sense with, or people like me that literally work in this whole social media tech world. A lot of the brands I actively work with or want to work with were literally there. And I was able to have one-on-one chats and conversations and literally have brand partnership conversations that happened on the ground at Cannes, are currently happening in my inbox, in my calendar, on calls, to have all of those things come to fruition. Do I think lifestyle creators or fashion creators or creators in other fields where those topics don't make sense should be there? Not necessarily. I say all this to say that Cannes Lion isn't just a conference or another networking event. It truly is an industry event. So I think the more hype Cannes Lion gets, the more people are going to be very disappointed that they're not seeing an ROI from being there. For example, if you are in podcasting, maybe you're managing podcasts, so you could literally get people that are hosting shows and need support or want to launch their own show. Or if you're a host of a podcast, this is a great way to create content with people to build hype and have like mini interview conversations, or to literally be able to connect with the big celebrities and big major speakers that you probably want to have on your show in a way that you just can't in other places. If you're a creator like myself, you can have these conversations, go to these events, and network with the brands you want to work with. Or if you're a creative service provider like I am with my agency, it's a great place to find people that are literally needing content coverage and editing and management or event content, which I was actively doing on the ground. There was such a big need for this. Do I think if your main offer is like courses or coaching or in those different niches and industries, I just honestly think it doesn't make sense for you to be here. I think the investment is so big that you want to easily see your ROI in the next few months from the event. I think a big reason why you go to Cannes Lion is the access. Sometimes the programming's great. I overall found a lot of the panels to be very lightly attended, to be very hard to listen to, and it was so hot. People were totally checked out. This isn't the place where you go to necessarily learn and get all of these industry trends. I think that naturally happens in conversations. I really think the power of Cannes Lion that was so hyped up, and I totally experienced myself, is the access you get to people. Incredible people like Morgan DeBon and Rachel Rogers, who I have loved and followed and admired for years, I literally just ran into while I was at the event. And you've probably seen all the people that are getting selfies with celebrities or hanging out with their favorite macro creators. Those people are everywhere, and I think more accessible than in other places. You can run into them, or you can intentionally fill your schedule with things to get access to them. Because while you might not go to a panel to listen to the information, what you are going to do is sitting next to someone that you know you want to connect with, or staying after to talk to those speakers and panelists afterwards. And on that note, I honestly think it's so overrated to only go to Cannes to do speaking or brand partnerships. Of course, you want to see that ROI. You want to ideally have your trip covered by brand partnerships. I didn't have either of those things. And even from hearing people that did a lot of speaking or people that actively say they don't do speaking while at Cannes, I totally understood it, because while it is a full week, it is a full week. It is hot. You're doing lots of walking. There's traffic in between places. And so I find that there's more value in like actually connecting and networking with people than being on a panel. I feel like it's a really nice like resume moment, but I think there's bigger ROIs from just like networking with people. So now let's get into like my overall thoughts on the conference. And the first one is like the honest part of like, it was overwhelming. It was overstimulating. It was long, busy days. When they say you're out from 9 to like 9, it truly is that and then some. I also will say the FOMO is real. Even as someone who was there, I felt like, oh, should I have gone to this? Or why didn't I get invited to this? And like really feeling like I could have always been doing more. But I think I slowly started to realize that I wanted to be in the smaller rooms, like the more intimate settings, the more intentional spaces that clearly tied into a goal of mine. That was where the power was of being there. And so yeah, it's fun to go to the exclusive parties and go to the yachts and get selfies with your favorite celebrity. And sure, great opportunities can happen from those things. Like everyone is out here living their best life and can, but as someone who has high sleep needs, I was always thinking, is it more important that I'm early to my meeting in the morning, or that I'm the first one to get to this house when it opens? It's really easy to get distracted by the shiny things during the week of Cannes Lion, but are you focused on the things that drive the biggest ROI? But my favorite days was actually Sunday, which is why if you were going to go to Cannes, I highly recommend actually arriving Friday, especially if you're coming from the States and you have jet lag and red eyes and all that to deal with, because Sunday was probably my favorite day. I went to a really intimate brand lunch where I had a great conversation with a brand that I'm super excited to hopefully partner with. I also went to a really fun party hosted by my friend Taylor Loren, and the people that were there were just amazing. Like it wasn't like a networking vibe, it wasn't like pitching, but like you were able to truly just like build your circle. I will say the brand activations on the beach, totally overhyped. Go get your free stuff, go have some fun, but I wish I would have spent more time at like a place like Colin's house. It literally was the most gorgeous villa up in the hills with like a full garden, and it was gorgeous, but it was max 50 people. And it was very much like if you were accepted, if you got in, if you were there early, you were in the room with some really cool people. You know what I mean? And I also had some really great one-on-one coffee chats with Natalie, the founder of Rella, for example. We were able to chat, create content together. And I feel like those were the things that were the most impactful, not trying to go to like the most fun party. So while I want to do an entire video on like what I would recommend if you're like, okay, I got this far, I definitely want to be at Cannes Lion in the future, in the next year, I will be answering all of your questions there. But in general, like how did I plan and prep for Cannes Lion? I actually had a real plan. I used Claude to essentially take everything I registered for, everything that was on the top of my priority list, my goals, everything that I had a registered QR for, and to essentially help me build out my calendar for the week. And it was great because I had 3 anchors for the day. A little pro tip is to make one of those a meal or a networking event. And then from there, I just had options. So if I wanted to go here, if I wanted to add something randomly that someone recommended while I was chatting with them, I was able to like add things in. But I also added in blocks for literally resting, refreshing, recharging, because the heat with the walking, like you need a moment. You need a moment to refresh. You can't always do that, but it is really helpful when you can. I definitely kept things flexible, but I think having the most important things as priorities on my calendar made it where I wasn't missing an opportunity trying to decide on what to do, because there's always 100 million things to do. So to wrap things up, was Cannes Lion worth it for me? Yes, and I will definitely be there next year. I came in with 2 goals. For the creator side of my business, I wanted to build brand relationships that could lead to long-term partnerships. And I definitely achieved that, at least for 2 brands, that like the conversation is continuing even after being in person together. And just like a bonus to build relationship with brands I already actively work with. And the second relationship was, how can I essentially build my agency, right? And so part of that was doing coverage and like having that social proof that we do this type of stuff at an event as big as Cannes, but building relationships with the people we did coverage with, but also that led to, oh, you're filming content for so-and-so. We have a conference. I would need content for this. And so I was definitely able to get my name and my agency's name out there to essentially get more client opportunities in the future. Not even to mention, like, we got hired to do coverage for 2 founders across multiple days of the conference. And I think the final goal was like adding extra thought leadership for myself. So I've been posting lots of Cannes Lion content, not because I want to be a Cannes expert, but because I wanted to show how I show up when I'm at events like this, whether I'm attending, whether you're partnering with me in content, whether I'm actively speaking. I wanted to build that credibility and that layer of social proof that I know is going to help me in the future. Even if I was just thinking about the creator side of my business, I think it would be worth it for me to be there in the future. But yes, it definitely was a big investment, but I already see it paying off tenfold. So in summary, it's not about being invited to Cannes Lion, it's about going in intentionally with a strategy and a plan for the week. If this conference is aligned with what you do and the people you want to connect with, there is so much opportunity if you do this week right. So I already have a video in the queue for next year on doing your schedule, packing, planning, where to stay, any hacks and tips that I found out the hard way. So if you have any follow-up questions, definitely let me know and I'll save them for a future video. But I hope this was helpful and I'll see you in my next one.